Hey y'all, it's Mama Beth and I'm back in the kitchen, and I have a very special episode because I did a boo-boo and I've heard about it for 5 months, so I'm rectifying it right now. I made a video way back when I first started. I can't believe it's been about 6 months now. I had just gotten my camera. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I couldn't focus. I was just learning to cut and clip and do all that stuff and put it all together. But because I have a PC and it's a piece of crap and their editing software isn't good, I messed up. I ended up putting just the first half of the video on and everybody's like, where's the rest of it? And my friend Katey, MFW, that's her channel, Miss Fucking Wonderful, she has been on me saying, I need to learn how to make deviled eggs and you need to finish that video. And I just really, every time I go to make a video, I'd forget. So as you can probably hear, I'm boiling eggs. And I'm going to start from the beginning and I'm going to teach you how to make real southern deviled eggs. The kind that you can take to any kind of picnic or gathering and people are going to go, oh my God, you're the best cook in the world. These are so delicious. Your deviled eggs are better than anybody else's. And you can go, yes, they are. Okay. The first trick is every recipe that you've probably ever seen for deviled eggs says take 6 eggs and boil them. Then when you cut them in half, you'll have 12 beautiful eggs. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's a bunch of horse manure because nobody ever eats just 12 deviled eggs. If you go anywhere, they're always like, you run out of deviled eggs. Do you have any more? Do you have any more? So boil a dozen. If you're going to boil 6, you might as well boil a dozen, right? 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Put them together, you got a dozen. Okay, the second thing is make sure that you boil them for about 14 minutes. And that's from the time it starts to boil, the water starts boiling till the end. Put them in the cold water, okay, with a little bit of salt in the water. Put your eggs in, cold water, a little dash of salt. It makes all the difference in the world. Then you heat it up and let it boil. For, like I said, once it starts boiling, start your timer on your cell phone or whatever for about 14 minutes. And that way you'll get the perfect hard-boiled deviled egg. Because if you have soft-boiled deviled eggs, they're not going to be good. So mine are boiling, and I will have the recipe, by the way, in the description. Although it's so easy, anybody could do it. I've got my ingredients in my bowl already, just to make it easier because I'm not Martha Stewart and I don't have all those little cups that are around. So I just went ahead and put it all in my one Pyrex bowl to make it easy. Now, for a dozen eggs to devil, and let me make sure I don't, y'all know me and my notes, I have to check my notes out from time to time. So for a dozen deviled eggs, you're going to need 4 tablespoons of mayonnaise. Now, when I say mayonnaise, I use Miracle Whip. Sometimes, it depends on where I'm going. In the South, it is considered a sin not to use Duke's mayonnaise. If you don't know that, then you're not from the South. I don't think nobody uses anything but Duke's mayonnaise, but we're trying to watch calories and stuff like that. So I do use Miracle Whip sometimes, unless I'm going to a big family event and everybody can tell the difference. I can't really, there's a difference in the lemon. Mayonnaise has a lemon tang to it, if you've ever made homemade mayo. But I make Miracle Whip for those of us when it's just family, close family like me, my husband, and my daughter. Although she won't eat them anymore, well, she might eat these because she's a vegetarian and she eats cheese and eggs, I think, only. That's the only animal products. I don't know. I can't keep up with all of it. She's going to have to give me a menu next time she comes so she can eat something. Okay, then you're going to put 3 tablespoons of dill pickle relish. Now, if you don't understand the difference in pickles, I can help you there. There's sweet pickles, there's dill pickles, there's all kinds of pickles. But for this, you're going to need dill pickles. And they have dill pickle like this right here that I've got. It's made by Food Line. It's just dill pickle relish. It's already chopped up for you. If you don't have a Food Line close to you, or you don't have that on hand, just chop up some regular, good old kosher dills. I recommend getting the good ones, get the good brands. There's several good brands out there. But chop them up into little fine pieces. That way it's going to be easier to pipe into your eggs later. And of course, you hear my 2 dogs. Anytime I talk, they think I'm talking to them. And if you didn't know, Spanky passed away the other week, and it's been real hard on us since. But we still have our beloved Brian and Marlet, and they play, and they're doing better. But anyway, 3 tablespoons of pickle relish. Then you're going to add just a dash of salt. Usually I put in about between a fourth and a half teaspoon. I measure it in my hand. So like most cooks do, we do teaspoons in our hands. Okay, now 2 teaspoons of prepared mustard. Now, what is prepared mustard? It means it's in the jar already. You can use regular mustard. I like to use Dijon mustard. I like the deeper flavor to it. And it just makes my deviled eggs taste so much better. And just a dash of pepper, and then you're going to garnish with paprika, of course. The paprika, you don't get much flavor, but it sure does look pretty with that red against the top. Now, you're going to need a piping bag. If you're not used to using a piping bag, you can just spoon it in. It's no biggie, but if you're using a piping bag, make sure you cut the end of it to where the pickles can come out. Now that that's settled, while my eggs are boiling, I thought I'd tell you a little story, because I've been asked to do more story times. I guess people get a little tired of therapy. It is a little bit depressing, but deviled eggs are always one of my favorites. And wherever we would go, my mom made deviled eggs a lot, and my brother and I would kind of fight over them. My dad would just give up. He got them if he could grab them, that was it. But Mom made them, and I like this recipe because it is identical to my mother's. And I wrote it down years ago, and it tastes just like hers. But like my other grandmother, she didn't make them. My Aunt Muncie, my great aunt, she lived with my grandparents. It was 3 of them in a big farmhouse. They had a big farm. They've still got, my granny's still on a big farm. And she would make them, but they didn't taste quite like my mother's. And I figured out later that it was because she used sweet pickles. And she would say, "You love deviled eggs." And I'm like, "Yeah, but these taste different." Well, deviled eggs are one of those things that, since they've got mayonnaise in them, hang on just a second, that's my alarm going off. That's my 2-minute warning. But deviled eggs are one of those things that has mayonnaise, and much like potato salad and everything else, everybody used to say, don't let it sit out in the sun, don't let it get warm, it'll turn, and you'll get food poisoning. Well, that was correct back in the day. But now, we've got preservatives and things, so you can leave deviled eggs out all day long in the hot sun, they are not going to turn. That mayonnaise is not going to turn, Miracle Whip, whatever. Same goes with potato salad. You'd have to leave it out for a long time. But for it to even think about spoiling because of the preservatives in it. But anyway, back when I was a little girl, you know, we have homecomings. Now, if you don't know what a homecoming is, it's not the kind that you go to in high school. Homecoming in high school is a big dance and celebration, all the alumni come back. Well, in the South, especially in the mountains, I'm in the Appalachian Mountains. I'm an Appalachian American here in West Virginia, in the Blue Ridge. There's lots of names for this area, so if I throw them out, you'll know what I'm talking about. But homecoming is when you go to church, and everybody from the different families comes together, and it's like a church's family reunion. And you have to understand that growing up where I did, most everybody's related somehow, some way. You know, when you go to the South, you stand in a grocery store and you say, "Hey, how are you? I don't know you. Who are your people? Where are you from? How we're related?" You know, everybody knows somebody that somebody else knows. It's no matter where you go in the South, you get the same questions. Even when I moved to North Carolina from Virginia, people would say, "Who are your people?" And I'd give them my last name. They'd say, "Oh, I know so-and-so. Are you kin to him and him?" And it turned out that I would have relatives somewhere. And it's a good feeling. But homecoming at the church is a real big deal. They do it once a year, and they send out the bulletin so everybody can notify the families. And like my grandparents' church, my family built it back in the early 1800s, late 1700s, and they built the original church, and my family has kept, you know, they put bathrooms in when it was time. I remember when I was little, we had an outhouse until the bathroom got put in. The pews got covered with seat covers, real nice. And then my grandparents built a picnic shelter, really nice big picnic shelter for homecomings. And if it rained or something like that, we would go down to the basement of the church, which was finished, and they'd have a long table there, and we would, let me turn this off, and we would eat down there. But when homecoming comes around, everybody fixes a cover dish, something. If you're lazy, you go to KFC, or you go to the grocery store and buy some bags of chips and pop and stuff like that. Of course, there was always plenty of coffee and sweet tea to go around. And people made different pies. If you weren't into cooking, you just go buy something, and that was fine. You know, if you weren't a great cook, it was best if you did that. However, if you enjoy cooking like me and most of my family, you made your specialty. You made something that was really good. I remember my grandmother used to love to make cakes, and I was never a big fan of casseroles, but my mom would make this potato ranch bacon casserole, and it's really good. I'll have to make that sometime and show you how to do it. But anyway, that was the time when everybody made their specialty. And, you know, you would go down through the line, and you knew that KFC was going to get grabbed first. If you got a piece of Kentucky Fried Chicken, you were doing good. You were at the head of the line. But usually women let the men go first. Old-fashioned rules. Men went first, then the elderly ladies would go, and like your grandmothers and your great aunts and all them, and then the mothers would come through, and they would fix a plate for their child. And then the mothers would go through last and get a plate for their for themselves. So they always fed their children first. And if you go back to those churches, those old-fashioned churches, even today, that's the way it still goes. The men go first, the elders of the church, then the older ladies, and then the moms fix their kids' stuff, and then the moms go last, always. I don't think most of those mothers ever got a hot meal because they were too busy serving everybody else. Kind of like in the movie A Christmas Story. Well, I've got to show you a quick trick on how to make these really easy to peel, and I'll be right back. Okay, y'all don't look at my messy sink. I got stuff everywhere. The first thing you've got to do is pour out that hot water. Okay, now one of these eggs must have had a crack in it already. It's busted. That's all right though, we can fix that. You want to pour out as much water as you can, and then you want to turn on the water cold, and then ice. Whether you have ice trays like I do right now, because my refrigerator's ice maker isn't hooked up yet, so we're doing it the old-fashioned way. But you put ice in there and cool those down right quick, and that shell will come off like nobody's business. I learned this trick years ago when I worked in my first restaurant. My first restaurant other than just waiting tables, and I was helping in the back, and there was a buffet. And those old ladies back there, I say old, they were probably in their 50s and 60s. Of course, I thought they were elderly then. They did this, and those eggs will peel just slick as you can get them. And it makes it a lot easier. Okay, hold on just a second. I'll be right back. Okay, while my eggs are cooling down, I'll go on with my story. Okay, everybody made their favorite dish to make, or what their specialty was, or what their family especially liked to eat. That way you'd be assured that you get something that you like. But, you know, I have a lot of great aunts and half great aunts, and because my grandfather was married twice. Well, one of my half great aunts, anyway, she was way up there. Wonderful lady. We called her Ma Bessie. Her name was Bessie, and there was so many Besses and Elizabeths and all of that in the area. She was Ma Bessie. And she lived down the road from my grandmother and my grandfather, Ma Muncie. And I'd go trotting down there all the time to visit her. I loved it. She was so nice. But you learn not to eat her deviled eggs. And I say this, and I hate it because she was so sweet. But no, nobody would eat her deviled eggs, and she couldn't figure out why. Well, it was because her deviled eggs, she would mash the yolks up, and sometimes they weren't quite done. Now, you got to remember, she was probably in her 80s at the time. But she would mix it with mayonnaise, a little pepper, and that was it. And they were awful. And anybody who mistakenly got one would end up spitting it in their napkin or something like that. And, you know, because you never want to embarrass anybody. And Lord, I wouldn't be telling the story if she hadn't passed away years ago. But anyway, every time I make deviled eggs, I think about her, and God love her, she was so sweet. She had an old pump organ, if you know what those are, and a pedal organ, and the seat went around and around. You know, somebody actually stole that seat, but that pump organ's still sitting there, and my grandmother told me I can go get it and I can have it. But the way her house is sitting, we can't get it out. We can't get the truck back up in there, or we don't know how we're going to get it out. But when I was a kid, I would go down there every time, you know, every time I visited my grandparents, I would go down to her house, and I played piano from, I guess I started lessons about 4 or 5 years old. And she would let me play, and I could pull all the knobs, and you'd have to pump and pump. And I remember being so little when I first started playing with it, you know, playing on it, that only my toes would work the pedals. And she'd let me do that for hours. She had the patience of a saint. And, you know, I go down there, and she had real long hair. And I remember it was just snowy white, and she put vinegar in her rinse water, and she said that's what kept her hair from turning like a grayish silver. She always believed in using just white vinegar after her last rinse. And we would go down there, and she would have washed her hair, and then I would help her brush it out, and it was thin, but it was really long. And I'd pull it up on top of her head for her. After it had dried, I'd brush it till it dried. And she had these old-fashioned hairpins, you know. The ones we have now, the bobby pins, they're tight. They hold tight. But the ones that she had a curve to them. And she told me one time that she had had the same set of bobby pins for 20 years. And I said, how do you keep from losing them? I lose hair bows and all sorts of stuff. And she said, I don't know, but I never had to buy new ones. And you know, it's those little details that I remember. And beside her house, you know, where I live in the mountains, there's a lot of freshwater springs, especially around my grandparents' farm. And I guess that's why the land's so valuable. But I remember you could come out the front of my Bessie's house and go down the little hill, and there was literally a screen over a pipe, and it pumped directly into her house because that stream bubbled up, and it made like a little, just a teeny pond. It was probably about 3 or 4 feet across, maybe a foot deep, and then it trickled on down into the brook. But that was the best tasting water, and it was clean, no pollution, and you just take your hands and drink it. And sometimes Granny would bring a cup. Y'all remember those collapsible plastic cups that everybody used to keep? Did Tupperware make those? But they were like, they had concentric rings that went smaller and smaller down, and you put it on a cap, and you could put it in your purse or whatever, and then you pull it up, and it made you a nice sealed cup. And she would sometimes bring that, and I would go down there and drink water. It was so good. I remember that. And, you know, every time I go to my granny's to visit her, I always say, we need to go to that spring and get a jug of water. I wonder if that spring's still there. You know, they've done this state thing where I guess where the cattle were getting in the water, so many farms and everything, they have fenced off around, and the state, you had to pay for it, and then the state paid for the rest of it. You had to fence around every pond you had, every stream, brook, whatever. And then they would pay for the irrigation system to take the water back up to places where you needed it, like higher up on the mountain or in the fields, wherever. Like my granny, you know, of all the ponds, how many ponds does she have on her? 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 4 ponds on the farm. But like up towards the mountain, because they own from the road, this side of the road, then this side of the road, and then it goes all the way up to the mountain. There was no water up on the mountain, so if the cattle up there got thirsty, or if you wanted to plant anything, you know, the water was all down lower. So now they've got water at the mountain, and you know, and the state paid for it, and I don't know whether it's cleaned the water up that much, because, you know, everything that was in it was natural, you know, it was an animal, and nobody drank directly out of it unless it was right from the spring. But you know, it's just a beautiful area, and I just want to go back, and I'd like to drink from that spring like I did when I was a kid. It's just a beautiful place. If you've ever driven the Blue Ridge Mountains, Blue Ridge Parkway, that's you can ride it from, I think it goes from Roanoke, Virginia, all the way down through Galax and all the way down into North Carolina. But come in the spring or come in the fall, and it's just a beautiful area. And you know, my grandparents' farm is maybe 100 miles off of the parkway, but it's my favorite place in the world to be. But I'm going to go get these eggs and get them shelled real quick, and then I'm going to show you how to get them cut and piked. Okay, hang on just a second. Okay, let's get these eggs naked. I'm going to show you how to do a couple of them. You just tap all the way around like this. Make sure y'all can see what I'm doing. Yep. This is a little different for me. I don't have a professional cameraman, and my lighting setup's not great, but we'll make it work. See how that slid right out? And then just put them in a bowl. And I just keep at it. And it literally takes next to no time to peel these eggs if you do it like that. Go from the top all the way around and just slide your nail right underneath, or you can actually just smooth it off. But you don't want to rip the egg, and that's why I say make sure you boil it for at least 14 minutes. That way the egg's not so soft, the white is not soft, and it won't peel with the shell. And the salt in the water, and then cooling down the water with ice real fast, that makes all the difference in the world. So I'm going to keep peeling these, and then I'll be back in just a second, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. I have to find my egg tray. I don't know where my husband puts it. Every time he puts something up, I can't find it. But I'll be back in a minute. Okay, all the eggs are peeled, and a couple things I just want to mention. First, if you notice my face is swollen, steroids. I had another bout with shingles. What can I say? Valtrex, steroids, and being quarantined for a little while. I'm off quarantine, so now I'm back to cooking and doing the things I want to do and that I enjoy doing. Also, if you didn't know, I collect aprons. Look at this. Can you see that? It says, "Where's my bubbles, bitch?" And it's got Glenda the Good Witch on it. Easy Slots Life Jackpot Joe. Thank you for offering these. I got it off of his merchandise site. Absolutely love it. If you don't know, I'm a Wizard of Oz fan from the get-go. And I always wanted to be Glenda. I like bubbles and pink, and I've always thought it would be really neat to have a wand. Anyway, and she's all glittery, and if you know anything about me, I like the glitter. Okay, now you got a raw egg. It's a naked egg. It's time to play with it. You're going to take a knife. Do not take a butter knife. Get a real knife, sharp knife. Not so sharp you're going to run through your hand, but, you know, get you a decent knife. You're going to cut it end to end, just like that, making 2 even halves. See how pretty? Now, you're going to take that and pop the yolk, and I can't turn the camera at the same time, but the yolk just pops right out. And then you're going to set it on your egg dish. And I'll show you that in just a second. Let me pop the other one out. And you'll see what I'm talking about when I say an egg dish. You can find these in depression glass. Now this has a little salt and pepper shaker in the middle. I can't find them. My husband put them up. All I find is this. I'll have to go dig later. I did know where they were, but I'm going to have to look for them again. Anyway, this is the deviled egg dish. You've probably seen these all over the place. Anyway, I've had this one a long time, and you just keep cutting these eggs in half, and I'll show you. Let me turn my camera around. Oh, if I can do it. Let's see. Okay, let me get my angle. I apologize, I'm a crappy camera person. Now, see, you just take the yolk, slide it right out. Slides right in there, and then you have the shell. So you're going to keep doing this with all the eggs. And as you're doing it, I remember I have done this so many times. I couldn't count the dozens of eggs that I have boiled and deviled. And the reason that they're called deviled eggs is because anything that was considered delicious or had been altered, turns out, were called deviled. To devil something is to alter it or to change it. That's why it's devil's food cake. Well, maybe not devil's food cake, because that's just a deep chocolate. But what I'm saying is when you devil eggs, you're altering them from their natural state. And so they're called deviled. Isn't that interesting? I read that, and I believe it was The Joy of Cooking. And if you don't have that book, I advise you to get it, because when I married for the first time, I, of course, could make regular meals and, you know, just about anything that I'd eaten growing up. But there were a lot of things that I did not know how to fix. And I was always bugging people for recipes. Now, as you can see, wait a minute. Whoop, I do have 2 more spots. This holds 6 full eggs or 12 deviled eggs. And you know how I feel about making just 12 blooming deviled eggs. So I'm going to put the rest on a regular plate. And I do have another deviled egg plate somewhere around here. But once again, my husband put it up. And if you're wondering, we are still working on our kitchen. The countertops should be done in, I think he said he'd have them done in a few more days. Praise the Lord, and pass the potato salad. Because as y'all know, I have been waiting since March to get my kitchen finished. March. It is now May. And I've about had it. We do have all our appliances. The stovetop doesn't sit down like this, it goes across. So the counters have to be installed, and then that put it at the same time. So he'll install the new cooktop range. And it's all stainless steel, and the counters are black marble. And I found this really cool looking black marble with light gray and white veining, going through it. Okay, now I've got a dozen yolks in there. What am I going to do with it? Well, I'm going to take this in a minute. But the first thing I'm going to do is mash it. You've got to mash those yolks up. If you don't, they're just going to get stuck in your whisk. But you're going to need that whisk in a minute because you want it to be creamy. Because you're going to pipe it in. See, so you're just mashing and stirring and mashing and stirring. And if you have any stress or anxiety or your kids are driving you off the wall, this is the time to do it. So you just get that all good and mashed up and mixed up. There's a couple boogers that are fighting me. There we go. Now I'm going to warn you, if you eat a bunch of these, you're going to have gas. That's just part of it. It happens. We all do it. There's no shame in it. Now, whoop, I'm about to throw my paprika. I'm going to put this in a bigger bowl so I can whisk it. Get out of there, buddy. I try not to sling stuff too bad in the kitchen, but you know, kitchens are meant to be a little messy, and then we clean them up when we're done, right? So as you can see, I'm taking a whisk, and I use that whisk and I'm mash. But because it's a whisk, it's not like using a mixer or anything like that. You don't want it, because you've got pickles in there, and you don't want it too smooth, but you want the egg yolks good and smooth. See how that's coming out? All right, I'll be back in just a second. Okay, I know you can't see my face very well. I'm in the corner. I'm going to show you how to get this into the piping bag. Now, why put it in a piping bag? I like it. I think it looks neater. But you don't have to. You can spoon it right into the whites. But the way I do it, roll the top down a little bit. And this is a silicone one. And it's so much easier. My bestie, Tyne, she got me, and it's alright if you get it on the sides of the bag. And just make sure you have your hands washed. I wash my hands about 10 times when I'm cooking. Water and bleach and a little soap. But Tyne got me these to do my icings and things like that. And I really like them. The disposable ones, yeah, you can just throw them away. And you know what? If you don't have a piping bag, all you need to do is just put it in a Ziploc bag and cut the corner off. I mean, that's what I did before I had them. Because used to, you could only get them at like specialty bake shops and stuff like that. And that was a pain in the patootie because there wasn't one close to me. Now let's see if this tip is big enough to let them pickles out. It sure is. Look at that. Look how pretty that is. And I just go around in a circle. Woo! Okay. There's a blooper. That was a big pickle. Alright, just like that. And this recipe will fill exactly 24 halves or a dozen deviled eggs. Look at that. See how fast it goes when you do it this way? Alright, there's a big pickle in the way. You can kind of feel it. The tip is the perfect size on this, unless I get a great big old pickle hunk. Alright. See how pretty? I like them neat. Now, I'm not always neat with everything I do. I think we all strive for it. But let's move this one over. We just scooch stuff, don't we? We don't care. As long as it tastes good and it's made good, we'll clean the mess up later. Look at that. Look how pretty. Now, if you remember when I was boiling those eggs, one of them must have been cracked. And I could not salvage it. I did not say that. I could not salvage that egg. So, it was sacrificed as a treat for Merlet and for Brian because they're good boys. And they're not getting any of these because it's bad enough that my husband and I will have gas. I don't need dogs having gas too. Okay. If you have a little extra, which I've got just a tad, we're going to put just a little top on each one of these. Make it extra pretty. Fill it on up. Right? Because that's the good stuff. Okay. Now, wipe my hands. I'm not going to wipe my hands on this pretty apron. I just got it and I'm so tickled about it. Easy Slut's Life. You need to go check out his merchandise if you like Wizard of Oz stuff. He's a gambling channel. He does the slots. I didn't even know there was a gambling community until I met him. Okay, look at that. Ooh, doesn't that look good? Okay, now, I have found out, see how I'm just sprinkling a little paprika on top, make it pretty. My husband will wake up, because you know I film in the middle of the night when I have insomnia. I but guarantee my husband will wake up and eat about 3 or 4 of these. And if he doesn't tonight, then he'll do it for breakfast. Look at that. Look how pretty those are. Martha Stewart or Paula Deen couldn't have done any better, and I guarantee they're much better than any old fancy recipe that is in some big cookbook or anything like that. This is my recipe, and it was my Dee Dee's, and it's like my mom's, and I guess one of these days my daughter ate it. Now, if you are on, okay, let's talk about this. If you're on that stupid keto diet that everybody is so miserable on, and you're only allowed to have meats and cheeses and stuff like that, you can eat this. The dill pickle, cucumbers, brine. Okay, you can have that on a diet. And this is from a doctor that I was talking to today, actually asked, because Farrah and some other people are on, hey y'all, are on the keto diet. The eggs, completely fine. The whole egg. That includes the yolk. You need the yolk, especially for niacin and I think vitamin A, and I'm not sure what all other vitamins. I'd have to go look it up. But anyway, you need the yolk. The mayonnaise, you can use the mayonnaise that's made with olive oil instead of regular fats, and it's fine for you. And then of course mustard's always delicious, and the mustard that I use is the spicy brown mustard. You know me, I use generics unless it's something like flour or something like that. So this is Kroger brand spicy brown mustard, and it's delicious, and you can have it on the keto diet too. So everything in here, you can eat deviled eggs, and they're so good. All right, I'm gonna leave you now, and as I always say, from my kitchen to yours, I love you, you love you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.